Welcome to the Growing Your Business podcast, a program created to answer the question, what's in it for me, for both the business and their customers. Today's guest had this to say.
Do some research. What are the steps of a remodel? What type of budget should I think about? You want to try to figure out your budget by just getting estimates with people. I don't necessarily recommend that because then you're now spending a lot of time trying to create all these bids. Just figure out what budget should I be shooting for and then plan ahead because you might not want to spend that much money right now. And I can help create some of that. If you want to contact me directly, I'm happy to do that. But definitely research would be the first thing.
Now, stay tuned as we hear more on their values, mission, and why they continue to grow their business. Joining me today on the Growing Your Business podcast is Bob Harper with Texas Cabinet Solutions. Bob, thanks for joining me.
I appreciate it. Glad to be here.
Awesome. Well, let's jump right in with both feet and tell me about Texas Cabinet Solutions and what you offer your customers.
So at Texas Cabinet Solutions, we replace kitchen cabinets, and we can also do countertops and flooring and different elements of a remodel. But yeah, essentially that's what we do. And our mission with cabinets is not to be the cheapest price out there, but to deliver the best value. And there's a lot of ways that we do that, but that's the mission. So
you replace, so you're not here to fix it.
That's right.
You're here to get the good stuff in, get the old stuff out, correct?
Yep.
And why is that?
Well, because honestly, a lot of times there's a few reasons for it. From the customer's point of view, I like to deliver an experience, right? And so at the end of a project, I don't want them thinking, okay, that'll work. I want them excited, I want them extremely excited about what we've been able to do. And on a business level, it just makes more sense to go for larger projects that we can really commit to rather than a lot of smaller projects where we're running around with like chickens with their heads cut off. So
I imagine, and also anytime you're trying to replace something or work with something that's there, it creates problems.
Correct.
And you're getting rid of the problems, bringing in solutions.
That's right.
Which is part of the business name.
Absolutely.
I like your shirt. Tell us about this cabinet whisperer. What does that mean?
It's kind of my persona.
Yeah.
So I'm the cabinet whisperer. So if you're having cabinet issues in your house, I'll come in, we'll evaluate it, and we'll figure out a design that makes it right for you.
So describe an issue. Like I'm sure there's thousands of them, but give me some of your favorites. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the one that's the most common that everyone says is they just don't like the look, right? They want to update the look and feel of their kitchen. But I think some other issues that maybe people don't even think about, but once we explore kind of how they use their kitchen, what bugs them about their kitchen, what do they like about it, we start to uncover some problems that they don't really think about every day, but it bugs them every time it happens. So one that I think everyone can relate to is when you lose your Tupperware lid in the back of the cabinet and you're on your hands and knees trying to, and it's just a nightmare. So we have solutions for that so that you always can reach them. They're accessible. And there's several different ways to handle that. But that's a problem that maybe you don't even know is solvable, or you think it's going to be way too much money to solve it. But if we're redoing your kitchen, we can work that in. It's going to be reasonable. So, and there's other things too, maybe not enough clearance space. If you have an island in your kitchen and maybe it's too big for your space and now you're squeezing when two people are walking by, you're squeezing, or I've seen too where the dishwasher, the sink and dishwasher on an island and it's across from the range. So when you're opening your oven and your dishwasher at the same time, they bump. So there's lots of issues, functionality issues in your kitchen that maybe you just kind of take for granted. But once they're gone, it's such a relief and it brings a lot of joy into your home, into your kitchen.
That's terrific. I'd seen some type of diagram where you're supposed to have, it's like a triangle, right? What's that called where it kind of all fits based on the motion of the kitchen and efficiency?
Yeah, it's just called the kitchen triangle.
There you go. Okay.
And it's still a very valid philosophy. However, that was developed back in the 50s, or I'm not sure exactly, but back in the day when really the only person in the kitchen was the woman of the house, typically. And also the appliances were usually the range, the fridge, and the sink, and that was pretty much all you had. And so now we use our kitchens differently. Sure. We entertain in our kitchens. And we also, a lot more people access the kitchen, right? So for example, if you just go off of the kitchen triangle, which is still nothing wrong with it, but you want to think of more, how do you use your kitchen? It doesn't have to be a triangle, but you want to definitely figure out how you use your kitchen, and you want a good flow there. For example, one thing that kind of goes against the kitchen triangle is, but now makes sense in our current lifestyle, is having the fridge near one of the entrances to the kitchen. And the reason for that is because you have people in and out getting things in the fridge. They don't need to be clogging up the walkways in the kitchen, right? So if you hide that in a corner in your kitchen, it's just going to be, traffic city. So there's things now we still want to think about how you use your kitchen, the flow, the functionality that you need, but it might not end up being that perfect triangle that you're used to.
And it varies per space, and the cabinet whisperer can help.
Can
help you figure that
we'll
out.
We'll suss it out.
That's awesome. How long have you been doing this, Bob?
I've actually been doing this since 2023, so coming up on 2 years.
That's excellent. How does one get into becoming a cabinet whisperer?
Well, probably most people come to it a totally different direction than I did. So I would say most people probably start in the trades, and then they kind of get some experience and think they can do it better than their boss is doing it, and they go for it, right? But my whole career is in sales and marketing.
Okay.
So I've never been in construction. The closest thing is back when I was 19, I installed exterior lighting, in people's front yards, but that's about it. But so it's totally kind of a new space for me. The way I got into it was I lost my job. And so
it's a heck of a motivator.
Yeah. So I was looking for a new job, frustrated with the way that it went down in my last company. And I had a couple offers on the table, but one of my close friends from high school called me up and he said, hey, listen, I started a cabinet business. I think you'd be great at this. And he lives out of state. I'm not part of his company. He just, out of the goodness of his heart, said, hey, I think you should do this, and I'll support you any way I can in getting started. And so at first I kind of thought, I don't think so. It's not really, I don't have any value I can add there. But when I was getting my offers back on the jobs I was looking at, they weren't really what I wanted. And so I called him back. I said, hey, tell me why you think I'd be good at this. And basically what he said is, in the construction space, there's just a lot of unreliability. There's dishonesty, but even if you have honest contractors out there that maybe know that their work really well, they're good craftsmen potentially, and they can do the work, but maybe their communication skills aren't there, or they're not business people. And so what ends up happening is the customer doesn't get what they expected. Right.
That's tough.
And so my friend just said, hey, listen, will you take care of people? If you mess up, will you fix it on your dime? Will you answer your phone? Will you show up on time? And I thought those were silly questions, because in my world,
of course I would.
I'm like, you can't, like, that's just the price of sitting at the table. So I just kind of was like, is that even really valuable? But it turns out it is. And so when I kind of learned that, I said, I think I can add value to the space by giving people a really good experience. Homeowners who aren't used to working with contractors, don't know the questions to ask, the ins and outs. I can guide them through that. And I had to learn cabinets along the way, right?
Sure, of course.
So I did that, but that's how I got into it.
We all love to hear a story.
Yeah.
A customer reached out to you, had a problem. You fixed it. Tell me how.
Okay. So there's one that we did in Denton for a homeowner, and they were expecting a child. And so they had a lot of remodeling going on. So there was another general contractor that was working on all that, that I had worked with before. So we worked well together. And, but the problem they were having in their kitchen is it was just really small. The funny thing is there was plenty of space there. They just cut it off with a peninsula. So it ended up feeling like a really cramped area. So what we ended up doing is opening up some of the wall so that we had a little bit more space to work with. And we tore out all the old cabinets, and we installed new cabinets all the way to the ceiling. We added, based on their needs, right? We added some accessories like some rollout shelves in their pantry cabinet. We actually demoed their pantry, replaced it with pantry cabinets, which some people might think, why would you do that? But pantry cabinets are much more efficient with the space, and you can access things easier. So we made everything a lot more functional. Added trash can pullouts. They had the room for it now. And we added cabinets down the wall instead of cutting it off at where they had that peninsula. So we ended up adding a lot more storage, more functionality to their kitchen. and obviously the look and feel they're really going for.
Stay with us. The Growing Your Business podcast will return right after this. The Growing Your Business podcast is sponsored in part by Visual Learning Solutions. Stands out with its expertise in crafting immersive audio and video experiences. Their creative team has over 30 years of experience delivering dynamic internal training programs tailored to various industries. They ensure the audience receives a compelling message, promotes brand awareness, and increases return on investment. They also excel in producing marketing content. Learn more at their website, visuallearningsolutions.com. Please check our show notes for sponsorship links and additional details. Now, back to the Growing Your Business podcast with Buddy Broyles. Initially, when you first, receive a contact, and we'll talk about how to contact you toward the end of the show.
Sure.
But when they reach out to you, are there jobs where you take a look and you're like, I can't help because X? What is X when that happens?
So there's a few things that could come up.
Yeah.
Kind of what we talked about initially is if the project is too small. For example, if someone wants me to do a single vanity, I'm probably not, if it's a single sink vanity, just super tiny.
You're like, that's kind of a handyman job.
Yeah, it's kind of a handyman job. Yeah. I'm not set up price-wise to do that well. My crew, I'm going to have to pay them for the whole day regardless of how big the job is. So the install cost just not make sense. Also, if they want me to come in and, like we kind of said earlier, repairing, I don't do any repairs, but people have asked me just to reface, meaning replace the cabinet doors and hinges and things like that. And I looked into it. I thought that might be a nice value offer. But what I found is after it's all said and done, when you're buying new hardware, doors, repainting, all of those things, it ends up costing about as much as it would to replace.
Just new cabinets entirely.
Right. So the only reason to do that would be if you really don't want to replace your countertops, then maybe have someone do that. But that's not really me. Another thing is sometimes if I can do this, but it just depends on the size of the project. Sometimes they want me to replace part of a space, maybe part of a kitchen due to water damage or something like that. And they want me to match their existing cabinets. And I can do that, but depending on, like if it's a stain grade with like maple or something, it's a difficult wood to stain match. That I may not be a good option for that.
Best case scenario, what's your optimal job? Like you're just like, this is what I'm looking for and the people you can help the most.
It kind of depends. I mean, I'm totally happy to do just cabinets or just cabinets and countertops. So the struggle there is if they're not changing their flooring out, does the flooring go underneath the cabinets or not? If it does not, then we're basically stuck with the footprint of the old cabinets. Otherwise, you might have to replace the floor.
Sure.
So, but happy to do that or a full remodel. Where it really makes sense for me to come in is if you've been in your house, 15, 20 plus years and you're ready for a change and you're in that, I would say if your home value is probably, 500,000 or greater, it doesn't, that's a rough number. It doesn't have to hit that mark.
Slide the scale left or right.
But I mean, for a smaller kitchen, my pricing starts at, if it's just cabinets, no countertops, no flooring, nothing else, we're starting at probably about $15,000.
Yeah.
And then it kind of goes up from there. Right. So yeah, I mean, if the budget's there are financing options, so we can talk about that. But if you're ready for a change and you want to invest in that, then that's where I'd be a perfect fit.
Do you recommend, are there materials that you prefer to work with? And talk to me about that.
Yeah, great question.
Yeah.
Cabinets come in a lot of different materials. Sure. I don't do what is considered builder grade.
Okay.
And that's the lowest quality. Right,
you're above that.
Correct. Yeah. So builder grade for the actual, we call it a carcass in the industry, which I learned recently in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
But the box basically of the cabinet for builder grade would be made out of MDF or particle board.
Right.
And, those materials, they're actually very strong. They're just as strong as the materials I use. But what the problem is once you put a screw there, when you pull it out, you can't put it back.
Right. It's garbage. Yeah.
So any type of damage it takes, I mean, it's not repairable. So I like to use higher quality materials. So for my cabinets, I range from a mid-grade prefabricated cabinet. We can do high-grade prefabricated cabinets, so I can kind of explain the difference, and then we can go fully custom as well. So I can offer all of those options. A mid-grade prefabricated cabinet would have a half-inch thick plywood box for your cabinet, and it's going to be cabinet-grade plywood. So it's going to be good, strong, durable materials that last for decades. Your face frame, if it is a framed cabinet, which you don't necessarily have to know difference between framed and frameless, but if it is a framed cabinet, we have an all-wood frame, all-wood drawer box, and the doors, if it's a stain grade, will be all wood, but if it's a paint grade, will be MDF.
Right.
So, and the reason for that with the paint grade is, number one, it's a cheaper material, but number two is wood will change size. It will shift and move with the changing in humidity and temperature. And so MDF does not shift as much. And so it just allows a paint to last longer without cracking at the seams.
Right.
So that's why the paint grades are that way.
Makes sense.
And then the next level up from there is the high end, sort of high grade prefabricated, which will have thicker plywood, 5/8 to 3/4 inch. So what's nice about that is you can, if you wanted like a floating cabinet, a lot of people are doing that in their bathrooms.
Sure.
We can cut the toe kick off, and that's thick enough now to support a heavy countertop material and just be fastened straight to the wall. So it gives you some more options there. And then all the everything's all wood in that case.
Yeah.
And then going up from there is custom, and that's sky's the limit. You know, you can kind of pick your wood species, pick your style. We could do inset cabinets versus full overlay, and we could get into all that. But basically, the highest quality materials and hand craftsmanship at that level.
That's excellent, and that's your sweet spot is making really great stuff. You know,
Correct.
They love it. You're happy with it. You know, and so I imagine. So let's talk about how to reach you. Website has examples of some of the things we talked about.
Yes.
Yeah. So list out the website there.
So you can find me at texascabinetsolutions.com.
Perfect.
And it'll have pictures, my contact information, a little bit about us. And obviously feel free to call, text, email me directly as well, and all my information's on the site. So
let's say someone's listening or watching, and right now they're just standing there with their arms crossed, looking at their kitchen. What advice would you give them?
Well, I would say do some research. Go ahead and I have some videos up on my Facebook page that go through the process of the full remodel, right? What do you need to think about? And I would say go do some research on YouTube, look at my website, talk to me directly. I'm happy to guide you, but you want to kind of know what you're getting into before you start that sales process with anyone. And basically what I mean by that is, what are the steps of a remodel? What type of budget should I think about, and what's realistic? And a lot of times you want to try to figure out your budget by just getting estimates with people. I don't necessarily recommend that, because then you're now spending a lot of time and other people's time in trying to create all these bids. While I think that is definitely part of the process that needs to happen, I think very early on, just figure out what budget should I be shooting for, and then plan ahead, because you might not want to spend that much money right now. So figure out a plan for maybe a year, 2 years out to get that done. Yeah. And I can help create some of that. If you want to contact me directly, I'm happy to do that and guide you through that. But definitely research would be the first thing.
Well, Bob, I really appreciate you coming on the show, and I've learned so much about cabinets. At my age, I've had some remodeling done, and I appreciate the level of detail you provided, because it does make sense to, one, work with someone that you know and trust, but definitely that they know what they're doing. Right. And enjoy it. You know, you can't be a cabinet whisperer if you're not enjoying the whole cabinet process. So thank you for being on the show.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us today on the Growing Your Business podcast. Please see the show notes for links to our sponsors, our social media, and to learn more about today's guest.